Hello everyone and welcome back to game week 3 of the 2024-25 Optegra Premiership, where you join myself, Ryan Sipple, alongside Bobby Allen for the final game of the day, which will be contested between Norwich City and Sevenoaks. How are you, Bobby?
Good, I'm good. I think this will be a great game, to be fair.
It's one towards the bottom of the table, but it's one that is just as important for these teams as it would kind of a title race of Leeds and Teesside, which we saw on Court A just before this. So really significant. I'll bring up the live league table in a second so people can see what a potential win for either of these sides does for the standings. Let's go through the squads, starting with Norwich City, assuming it's been submitted, which it has. They have Mike Coleman, Thomas Donaher, they have Henry Barnard, Jake Edwards, Johan George and Hannah Murgatroyd. Their coach is Shane Brown. And Sevenoaks, with just a squad of 4, have Harry Bestwick, Kyle Alexander, James Mason and Miles Miller. Their coaches, Ian Hayward and Miles Miller. So, as promised, let's go through the live league standings. You'll see that Sevenoaks in 8th on 10 points, Norwich City on 1 point at the bottom of the table. A win for Norwich would see them go joint on points with Middlesbrough, but a far inferior goal difference means they will probably, almost certainly, end the day still rooted to the bottom. Sevenoaks, with a win, could leapfrog Greenbank and put a real level of comfort between themselves and the jeopardy spot. So 12-team division. Whoever finishes in 11th and 12th will be automatically relegated to next season's championship. Whoever finishes 10th will be placed in a one-off playoff game against whoever finishes 3rd in the championship. How have you found today, Bobby? You've had some great performances. I think 2 games played, 2 games won, picking up some real momentum. We've got the live league standings up. You can see that Villa played 11, now on 16 points, and your closest team above you is Aspire.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first game, Greenbank, we're prepared, you know, play against Marcus and he'll control it, and then you turn up and he's not there. You have to switch your game plan.
Yeah.
But I think we did well to cope with that, and like same with Middlesbrough, we lost 2-0 to them start of the season, and we just build on that. And I think from our results there, Greenbank were above us, so now we've gone above them. That's good. And not playing Aspire tomorrow, that will be interesting game. See what happens there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Aspire had a difficult start to game week 3. It was a 2-1 defeat to Leeds Chariots, but from that, playing Greenbank, a really impressive, I think a 3-0 win. So they're taking some momentum into the fixture against yourselves. But likewise, you've put together 2 really good performances, most notably against Greenbank. You scored a sensational goal, completely kind of wrong-footed Jacob Book-Platt. And I'm sure if I offered you 6 points at the end of Saturday, you would have slapped my hand off.
100%.
But this one, really important. It's so close at the bottom. Once again, I'll bring the league table up while they're getting their final team talks. At the top, you can see it. West Brom and Leeds, both on 28 points apiece. The glaring obvious thing when you reference that is the 2 games in hand that West Brom have and the more favourable goal difference. So you probably have to say at this point, West Brom are title favourites. But tomorrow will be the real test. They play Leeds, Chariots and Aspire. So who knows what can happen. But it'll be a tough day for West Brom. So I hope you can tune in to that one. Beyond that, you can see Teesside, Newcastle and Aspire, just 2 points between them. And then Villa, Greenbank and Sevenoaks, not even Sevenoaks really, Villa on their own are in a pack in the middle. You're equal distance away from Aspire above you kind of and Greenbank below you. So, I mean, I don't know what Villa's aspirations are for the season as a whole, but it's going to take some work to break into that pack above you.
Yeah, definitely.
Who, all of them on their day, can beat any opposition. And if you was to reset the season now, you would say all of them are going to be considered title contenders. So I'm intrigued. I don't want to look forward too much because we've still got some real exciting action to play in this season. But with Villa, it looks like the more you gel as a unit, the more you understand each other's games, the better you become. So I almost want to shoot forward to next season where there's no reason why you can't be really in that mix towards the top.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things from the start of the season we should have realised, like bringing in me and Dave, also losing a few players. I think we went into it a bit overconfident, thinking we can do this, we can be top 4 team. And I think if we just thought we can use this season to gel as a team, figure out how each other play, and then go into the next season and try and challenge the bigger teams, the better teams. I think that's then when we can build on it and then become one of them top teams.
Obviously, you've brought in Liam Lynch to game week 3s, 4 and 5. Fantastic international player.
Yeah.
And your performances today have been so brilliant, and that's without one of your key players in Hamza Midir, who I rate as one of the best prospects in the country. So it's really exciting times. What was most notable for me in that Greenbank win was the experience and the togetherness of Amir Ali Baba and Dave Lewis. They just looked like nothing that faced them seemed to faze them, and they're getting better at understanding each other's games. I think it's fair to say that in the opening 2 weekends, their styles almost clashed slightly because they both have different ways in which they want to approach games and game plans to adopt. But I think they're now starting to think on the same wavelength, and your wider team is benefiting from that. Yeah,
definitely. We've been doing that quite a lot in training, was working about getting Dave and Bobber to be on the same wavelength, because you can notice Dave coming from a West Brom where all it is about attacking, about passing, Bobber being about Villa being defensive, stopping the other team scoring. It's a big clash. So just but once them two are on the same perfect level, then it will be sweet.
It's a fantastic ball from Johan George, an early chance for Henry Barnard at the back post to go through the teams in their entirety. Norwich City have Mike Coleman, Thomas Donaher, Henry Barnard and Johan George. And Sevenoaks have James Mason, Kyle Alexander, Harry Beswick and Miles Miller. It's a good opening minute for Norwich City in desperate pursuit of their first win in the Premiership. Thomas Donaher, Republic of Ireland international, into Henry Barnard. Just controls it with the front of his chair just to assess the space and the options. Johan George drawn into that action, 2-on-1 surely in favour of Sevenoaks. Just want to see Johan George anticipate that ball's trajectory a little bit faster. It's just little things you can iron out your game that can make a huge difference. Keep momentum in your side's favour. As Miles Miller takes control on the left, completely stops play. Thomas Donaher quickly closes it down.
Done very well there.
It's end-to-end stuff here. Good pass from James Mason, controlled by Harry Beswick. A lot of pace on that ball and he can't quite keep it in. But promising signs early on.
Yeah, definitely. I've been impressed by James Mason this season. The balls he can play out from the back, they've been brilliant.
He's a versatile player, is James Mason, and I think it was towards the back end of last season that they started to use him as the goalkeeper. If they had a little bit more squad depth, I wonder where they would play him,
Yeah.
because I know he likes to attack, he likes to lead on the front foot, but his distribution is brilliant, and that's a real asset for Sevenoaks, who have been much improved this season than maybe the last 1 or 2 seasons where they've been in and around that relegation battle. But already this season they've got some crucial wins, and I think they play Middlesbrough today, Norwich here today, Middlesbrough tomorrow, where they'll be looking to try and get 6 points, certainly based off the table. You would make them favourites, but it will be interesting viewing nonetheless. As Thomas Donoghue tries to force it past Miles Miller. Johan George vacates that right-hand side, the left wing of Norwich. Thomas Donoghue just seems to be everywhere at the moment, and good communication. Johan George just squeezes between the defensive pair of Sevenoaks. Pete Westmoreland, the official overseeing this, complimented by Millie Bean and Mark Kerrison. This is good work from Norwich.
Yeah.
I mean, you consider their performances today. Both of these two have played 2, lost 2. Norwich 2 5-0 scorelines to the hands of Newcastle and West Brom. So if they can get 3 points here, I'm sure they'll be really happy with that.
Oh,
I said to you, would you take 6 points from Saturday? If I offered them to you at the start of the day, you would have said yes. If I offered Norwich 3 points from a day in which they face West Brom, Newcastle and Sevenoaks, they would also snap my hand off. So it's all about picking your moments and finding the most appropriate times to try and really go for it. Miles Miller's going to have a attempt here. Couldn't quite get the angle and or timing to trouble Mike Coleman, who's had a fairly quiet 5 minutes. Barnard into Johan George. Very close. Has to be careful of his placement with Miles Miller just coming out of his goalkeeper area. James Mason.
Great ball.
Can Bestwick catch up to it? He can. Fantastic save from Mike Coleman. Well read, but a good passage of play from Sevenoaks nonetheless. They're in the ascendancy. They've got the momentum. They have to be careful of that break. Out of play for a Sevenoaks ball. Thank you, everyone who's tuning in. This the final game of the day. We'll of course be back tomorrow with more action in game week 3 of the 24-25 Optegra Premiership. We have some incredible games tomorrow, most notably West Brom versus Aspire. Leeds Chariots versus West Brom, first beat second, among many, many others. I'm really intrigued to see Villa Rockets versus Teesside tomorrow. That's got to be a serious game to look forward to.
Yeah, that'll be a fun game. Teesside, they're fun teams to play against because they ping the ball about, and even all their set pieces, they just get you thinking where you got to be. And it's always fun to play a team like that, but then also very difficult.
Of course. Am I right in saying this is your second season competing in the Premiership?
Yeah.
How do you find competing against the best? Is it a nerve-wracking thing, or do you kind of relish it? Obviously, you're such a young player still in the wider context of the league. It's interesting to get your perspective of coming up against the John Baldins, the Ed Commons. Is it something that is a little bit intimidating, or is it something you just look forward to doing?
I think the first season it was quite intimidating because even if John Bolden just had the ball, I would let my other winger go to it because it is just intimidating. Like even just names are like great players.
Of course.
But I think now like it's more. I want to prove that I can be better than them.
And that's what comes with experience. That's what comes with a year or two playing at the top, in the top flight of powered chair football. And this is the top. This is not only the top level in the country. For us, this is the top level anywhere in the world. We think our National League is world leading. So if you can hold your own here, you can hold your own anywhere. And I mean, Liam Lynch now, Republic of Ireland internationals, come over to play his football in the National League. The same can be applied to Thomas and Sean Donoghue, Naglis Montvillas. Players want to come here. They want to test their ability. We had Valentino Zegarelli last year, which was just incredible. What a player. Obviously, I know a lot goes into organising transfers and sign-ins, and it's a huge commitment. If you're Liam Lynch or other, the time, effort, energy, money needed to travel this far to play. But it just shows how committed some people are to bettering their games.
Yeah.
And how fortunate we are that it's on our own kind of back doorstep. James Mason here. Very even opening 9 minutes. Norwich with a potential break on. I would have liked to have seen Henry stay in reverse there. If he had done so, he would have just been able to capitalise on that crossfield ball from Johan George. Something we often talk about, certainly when I'm commentating on high and wide wingers. Staying in reverse not only affords you the option of attempting an effort on goal, it provides time and visibility, whereas if you're turning to face forward, you can lose a lot of momentum. Seeing that from Harry Bestwick now, staying in reverse. And that's an occasion in which I would have wanted to see Miles Miller stay driving forward to try and get that pick off millimetres away, but a great chance for Sevenoaks. Got to say, a really even opening 10 minutes. Norwich have had their chances. Sevenoaks probably the more clear-cut opportunities, but you wouldn't say anyone really deserves the lead in this one. It's been so even. Mark Kerrison had his flag raised, just trying to understand the decision of the officials. The goal kick is going to be retaken, or a free kick, with Thomas Donoghue taking it. Kyle Alexander down the court, just over the front bumper of Miles Miller. He's going to engage the ball here, just swiped into it, didn't get the timing or connection. Harry Bestwick was open on the far side. Live on Court A, Middlesbrough versus Greenbank. Should there be any updates to that scoreline, I'll bring up the graphic that indicates it. But here you're joining myself and Bobby Allen for a very closely contested fixture between Norwich City and Sevenoaks. Worth noting, you'll know more than most, Bobby. It's a fairly unprecedented achievement of Norwich City to even be in this division. They were successful in beating Nomad Knights in that third place playoff, or the 10th place playoff from the Premiership point of view. So I don't think there's a great deal of expectation for them to really come to the Premiership and get a great deal of points in terms of accumulation. But if they can learn from the experience, if they are to be relegated back to the Championship, they will have so much experience to fall back on.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I know getting relegated isn't a good thing, but one of the benefits you can get from being relegated is you then, when you go back down, you should have all the a lot more knowledge and that to come straight back up.
Exactly.
And then when you come up, you'll know
better suited. We see that so often. I mean, the perfect example of that, I think, is you've got Newcastle United Foundation and Leeds Chariots. They both experience forms of relegation and promotion, and now you're seeing both of them competing towards the top of the Premiership. It takes years sometimes, and it could take a series of relegations and promotions to get that level of stability. But the stability can come. The task is keeping players and keeping a settled group, which is easier said than done if you're experiencing relegation. But if you can do that, you have a real chance to push on in the future. This is an opportunity for Sevenoaks. James Mason into Harry Beswick. Lets it run across his chair. 180 across the box. Ricochets between Thomas Donoghue and Mike Coleman. Nearly squeezed over the line. Bobby and I are at ground level, so it's hard to distinguish between players and the goal line, but reading the intention of the match officials, Millie Bean and Pete Westmoreland, just in discussion as to the decision here.
I think it'll be a penalty.
Yeah. And that is exactly the choice of Pete Westmoreland. Mike Coleman not happy with the decision, was deemed too aggressive in his pursuit of possession. But now, 5.5 minutes before the break, Sevenoaks have a really fantastic opportunity to take a 1-goal lead. James Mason with responsibility. We've spoken about his distribution, which of course is all about ball striking and accuracy and placement. This will be no different to a goal kick in terms of having a target and aiming for it. It looks like he's shaping up to go to the right, which is exactly what he does. 15 minutes gone. Norwich City 0, Sevenoaks 1. James Mason, the goal scorer. How do Norwich react to that disappointment? You have to say, beyond that, they've been very competitive. They've had success in attacking areas. Almost a cruel way to concede a goal, a contentious penalty. But this is where we see teams really, if they want to maintain Premiership status, this is when they have to come into their own. How do they react in the face of adversity? Calls for a 2-on-1, waved away from the referee. Beswick into Miller. Opportunity. Miles Miller lined up there, but no real power to trouble Mike Coleman. They have to be careful of contact in that final third. They've all been punished. Strong appeals from the Irish contingent to our right. So much fantastic support for Sean and Thomas Donoghue, Liam Lynch, Naglish Montvillas, whether that's in person or on our streams. That's something that bringing these international players into our league does, is bring a new audience to the WFA National League. Thomas Donoghue just trying to get the better of Kyle Alexander. Very congested. Could have been 2-on-1s in either team's favour as the ball flicks between Johan George and Miles Miller. Norwich just struggling to find the same momentum they started the game with. Henry Barnard and Johan George are not quite getting the distribution needed to punish Sevenoaks. It's a beautiful pass, nice dummy by Kyle Alexander. It's almost a trademark of his game. Well cut out by Thomas Donoghue, but the intent, definitely the right thing to do. Mason. Intercepted by Johan George. Well worked by Henry Barnard to just vacate that space. Good pass by Thomas Donoghue. Now, I would like to have seen Johan George go back to the centre there. James Mason read the intent. But they're making their way up the court slowly but surely. Final minute of this first half. Norwich 0, Sevenoaks 1. George down to Thomas Donoghue. There was no gap there. It's just a little bit forced at times.
You could just got to be patient with it, even in the corners. If you just take a touch and look at your options and then play.
Yeah, I mean, in that passage of play, James Mason and Kyle Alexander were locked bumper to bumper. There was no gap there. And I can understand some players play for the rebound, but even then it didn't look like Thomas Donoghue was necessarily set. And you've got to angle your pass in a way, or your shot in a way that it comes back to you. And that wasn't necessarily the outcome. Nice pass from Kyle Alexander. Once again, blocked out by Thomas Donoghue. Can't quite unlock the attacking success, but is so key to their defensive stability. It's almost disappointing that they conceded via a penalty, because beyond that, it's been fairly even. They've both had attempts on goal. As Miles Miller wasn't placed to capitalise, it went behind him. Nice pass from Miles Miller, really nice. We talk about locking it up and controlling it in the centre, taking your time to make your decision. He did that. Goes out of play, and the referee blows the whistle for half-time. Thank you to all that are tuning in, to myself and Bobby for this one. Norwich City 0, Sevenoaks 1. Before I let you go, let's just look at the live league standings that takes into consideration this live result. You'll see Sevenoaks in 7th with 13 points from their 11 games. They're just 3 points behind you now with the same games played. So very close indeed. Norwich still on a point from their 11 games. Middlesbrough 0-0 on Court A against Greenbank, so that potential point taken into consideration with their 5-point accumulation here. But thank you to all that are tuning in. We will be back very shortly for the second half. Hello everyone and welcome back to the final half of football today, which will be contested between Norwich City and Sevenoaks, currently separated by a single goal for James Mason at the penalty spot. Give me your thoughts on that first 20 minutes, Bobby.
I think it is quite an even game, apart from the penalty. Like it could have gone either way. They both had good chances. It's just putting them away.
It's exactly that. Norwich had success. It's just really taking your chances if and when they come. But with that one goal buffer, you would of course say Sevenoaks the favourite to secure 3 points, but hopefully we can have a really entertaining, competitive second half already. You can see this stance and this approach from Sevenoaks. They've got all 4 players in the Norwich half. Something that could play a real key, crucial factor in the overall outcome of the league is goal difference. So if and where possible, Sevenoaks will want to extend or grow their current goal difference. They're on minus 17, so conceded far more than they've scored. Never been an overly prolific team, Sevenoaks. A lot of their wins come via 1-0s or 2-1 score lines. That's why we just talk about if you was to add a little bit of depth to them, what they could potentially do if they're able to switch things up tactically and look to the bench. Obviously, they're adjusting to the departure of Greg Baxter, who's watching on the far side, who's now very much in the midst of a title challenge with Teesside. Thomas Donoghue and Johan George just having a discussion. Let's see how they shape up. Henry Barnard on the far side. Mike Coleman just pushed up near the centre circle. Locked up by Harry Beswick, just trying to bypass the Republic of Ireland international, Thomas Donoghue. Kyle Alexander. I think one thing you have to take into consideration here is both have already played 2 games today. Both were present very early here this morning. And I think it shows in the performance, a little bit lethargic, a little bit tired. It's been a long ruling day, as any 5-fixture weekend is. You play a 3-fixture day. It's tough.
Yeah, it is very tiring, especially last game on as well. It can be a very long day, and when you're going through tough defeats, it just ruins the day even more, puts more just tiredness and everything.
I mean, Norwich played the first game on Court B this morning at 9:30 against Newcastle United Foundation. And now they're here 5 minutes past 5. They're still going. It's not just the intensity and the length of the day. It's occupying your time in between fixtures to ensure you're still mentally ready and switched on to play football at the highest level. And this, don't make no bones about it, this is power chair football at the highest level. If you're not completely on your game, you will be punished and the opposition will capitalise, irrelevant of who you are. That's not just applicable to Norwich City. Same can be applied to Sevenoaks and anyone else for that matter. for a Norwich ball. As you can see, still goalless on court A. That would be a fantastic point for Middlesbrough if they're able to get it. You're seeing the impact that Marcus Harrison's absence is having on Greenbank. But you take a key central player out of any of the Premiership teams, you would see that impact in terms of results and performances. I compared it to taking John Baldwin out of Aspire's team. What does that do to their game?
Yeah.
Take Chris Gordon out of West Brom's team. What does that do to their game? And you can go down the table and pick a key individual out of any team, a leading player out of any team. And it's very unlikely that they will be just as proficient and effective in terms of point accumulation. So Greenbank having difficulty, but that's relative. They've had so much success in the Championship last season and in the opening few weekends of the Premiership this season that it could be a real learning experience for them. Well played by Harry Beswick, just to cushion it off Thomas Donahue's chair. Comes over to take this set piece. Back to Mason at the base of the four. That's really unfortunate. Had Kyle Alexander just angled his chair to the left, he would have acted as the screen there for the intended pass to Miles Miller. You can see the intent. They just need to be alert, because that would have been a real goal-scoring opportunity had Mason fired it over to Miles Miller on the right wing, the left of Sevenoaks. Mason into Beswick, intercepted by Henry Barnard. Sevenoaks not only acclimatise into life without Greg Baxter, as Miles Miller at the back post, fantastic goal. Absolutely brilliant. We're seeing set pieces be utilised so effectively, not just in the Premiership, but the Championship as well. And Harry Beswick fired the ball through the defence of Norwich City to pick out Miles Miller. It's a well-worked opportunity. The game's been crying out for a little bit of a moment of magic such as that.
That's why set pieces are so important. You can open up loads of teams just by 3 passes, bang, bang, bang.
Exactly. And the amount of 3 passage passes we've seen resulting in goals this weekend alone has been really noticeable. It was so in the Championship as well. I was going to go on to say how Sevenoaks not only adjusting to the departure of Greg Baxter, their long-term coach Adam McAvoy is now taking up the England senior head coach role, which is very much well deserved. So that is such a adjustment needed for these players who have been so used to having his guidance and his knowledge helping to guide their performances for so many years. But I'm sure if he's tuning in, he'll be very proud of this performance. Professional, I think, is the word you would use. They're showing a little bit more flair and intent in this second half, capitalising on a fatigued Norwich City side. Mason just trying to work the space to pick out one of either Miles Miller or Harry Beswick. James Mason. Got Harry Beswick in the centre, has to be careful of Henry Barnard. Across the box. Miles Miller can't make connection. You can see the visible frustration on his face. been times in this game where it's been really intense, high octane, high pace, and then others where it's just been really slow, really methodical. 10 minutes left to be played. Norwich City 0, Sevenoaks 2. Norwich just struggling in this second half, wouldn't you agree, Bobby?
Oh yeah, I think that happens a lot. Where once a goal goes in, you just can't let your head drop, because as soon as that happens, teams can open you up. And I think if you concede that goal and you don't go straight back at them, they'll press on you, and that's when the game gets to those big 5-0 score lines.
Harry Bestwick comes over. Just surrounded by Norwich players. Happy to just try and weave that down. A contact foul awarded in Norwich's favour. But I have to say, a clear progression from 23-24 for Sevenoaks. They really struggled last season. I think it got to the latter stages of the season where they started to pick up points. But already this season, 24-25, I think this is going to be their 4th or 5th victory. They beat Frostles in game week 1. They were able to beat yourselves, Villa, Rockets and Nottinghamshire in game week 2. So you add a couple of draws into that. It's a nice accumulation of points at this stage. Back post, Miles Miller does angle his chair to get an effective shot on goal. Millie Bean has her flag raised. I think they're indicating that someone may have left the court to prevent a goal. Just need to watch it back. Discussions, it could be a potential penalty here. And dependent on the passage of play, a card as well. I think that is what he's indicating. So Thomas Donohoe does receive a red card. It's a rule that will probably be reviewed in the off-season because it's double jeopardy. It's a red card and it's a penalty. So really, unfortunately for Thomas Donohoe, he does receive red. Norwich down to 3 players. 7 minutes left to be played. If you're Sevenoaks, you're looking to capitalise here, aren't you? You're looking to really put the pressure on and turn this 2-goal scoreline into 3, 4, potentially even 5. So another penalty for Sevenoaks. This time will be taken by Harry Bestwick. Could their 3rd goal be scored by 3 different goal scorers? He'll be looking to convert. He's shaping up to send it the same way. Saved by Mike Coleman. Grimace on the face of Harry Bestwick, but they've got momentum on their side. Good save from Mike Coleman. A rare highlight in what has been a difficult game. Likely to be difficult for the final few minutes. But as that rule goal goes, am I right in saying you received a red card for the same thing earlier in the season?
Yeah, I did.
It's so disappointing, isn't it? Because sometimes you're so locked in the action, you're focused on the ball, you can sometimes forget your proximity on the pitch and where you're placed. I don't think there's never any malice or intent. You're not deliberately going off the court to prevent a goal. And that's where I go back to that double jeopardy element, that it's so disappointing that not only do you have to go down to 3 players, you have to face a penalty as well. It should be, for me, it should be a yellow card and a penalty.
Yeah.
Or just a penalty.
Yeah.
You kind of have the red card as well.
Yeah, even like you saying, like you don't even like realise in the moment. When I got mine, I didn't even know what was happening until my teammate Reg. He said to me, "Nah, you didn't go off. You didn't go off." And then I realised, oh.
I remember because I was commentating on that game, and it was millimetres in it, and
Yeah,
there
it
is
was.
millimetres in the sport of power chair football. But yeah, it just sits a little bit uneasy with me, that rule. Thomas Donoghue locked in the action, just trying to prevent Sevenoaks' 3rd goal, and not fully aware of his placement, knowing that his chair was fully over the line. So disappointing for him. It will of course mean that he's suspended for Norwich's next game, which is not ideal. He's obviously such a key player. We spoke about the defensive stability he provides this team, but he'll learn from that experience as exactly how you have. And I'm sure now you've been on the receiving end of a red card from a similar fashion, you're a lot more in tune with that, and you're a lot more aware of your placement when you're defending your own goal.
Yeah, definitely. Whenever I defend now, I'm always noticing where the line is, just making sure that part of me is still on the pitch.
And it goes back to what we've been talking about all game, about learning from your experiences and applying that going forward. It's a good pass from James Mason, crucial interception for Henry Barnard, who's just filling in for the vacant Thomas Donoghue now. Bestwick, good pass from Mason. It's a good position taken up by Miles Miller. Could we have seen him stay in reverse? Probably. That would have allowed him to catch up to the ball. But that being said, the angle of the pass may have not favoured it, or maybe being a little bit harsh. I think there's something that Miles Miller is very effective at, knowing when to stay in reverse and when to engage it head on. Substitute can only be, I say it can only be for Norwich. Sevenoaks have no substitutes at their disposal, but they could have potentially switched up who was using or wearing, sorry, the goalkeeper jersey, but it will be for Norwich City. Henry Barnard off. Jake Edwards, the player, coming on. A really tough game, wouldn't you say, for Norwich? It's just they're more frustrating so because they had success in that first half, and had they taken their chances, this is a very different scoreline. And despite that, it's still just 2 goals in it.
Yeah, 2 goals, like it's a lead, but it's definitely still comebackable. But I think just with the 3 men, not long left to go now, and I think they won't come back from this.
I said that if and when Sevenoaks win, it's always very fine margins. This will be their most comprehensive win of the season. All of their other wins have come by a single goal. So it speaks to that element of how close it is. Final minute as Carl Alexander picks it off into Harry Bestwick. He's too wide to capitalise. Signs of frustration from Kyle Alexander. He just apologises to Harry Bestwick. He could have potentially angled that pick off to favour Harry Bestwick more than it did, but we are very late in the game. We're talking about Norwich being fatigued and tired from an exhausting day. The same sentiment can be applied to Sevenoaks as well. Final 30 seconds. Bobby, I want to push you for a player of the match, please.
I think it's between Harry Bestwick and James Mason, but I'll probably just give it Harry Bestwick because of his attacking work has been good, taking the ball, taking his time. The assist for Miles Miller's goal, even just the communication with the team, he's quite good at doing that.
Yeah, I've been impressed with Sevenoaks. They've been really professional in seeing this 3 points over the line. James Mason's distribution has been exceptional. Harry Bestwick and Miles Miller have both put themselves into some fantastic areas, and ultimately it's 3 points, which if you offered them at the start of the game, as we've said, they would have taken it. So they end Saturday on a high. Tomorrow will be a test for them. They've got some tough games to contest against Greenbank and Middlesbrough. But it has been a fantastic day of football here at the Lee Westwood Sports Centre. Thank you, as always, to everyone that's tuned in. More action tomorrow, as Bestwick just tries to turn defence into attack late on, as Pete Westmoreland blows the whistle for full time. Norwich City 0, Sevenoaks 2. Let's bring up the live league standings very quickly. It's 0-0 on Court A currently, so Greenbank and Middlesbrough sharing a point apiece, which is taken into consideration for what you are seeing on your screens. But Sevenoaks up to 7th. They leapfrog Greenbank in the standings and sit 3 points off Villa Rockets. Thank you to all that have tuned in today. We'll be back tomorrow for more action in game week 3 of the 2024-25 Optegra Premiership. Thank you very much, Bobby.